Hey everybody, KC here. So today I'm going to inaugurate something that we're going to call on Morning Newsbeat Fallback Friday. And the reason is, as you know, a lot of you know, a couple of months ago I made note of the fact that Morning Newsbeat celebrated its 20th anniversary. We are in our third decade. And a guy I have done a lot of work over the years with, a fellow named Bruce Becker, who's a video producer that I have shot a lot of video with over the years. He and I have recently discovered a trove of really old stuff that we shot in supermarkets all over the world. Now, I have a little background here. So a number of years ago, 30-something years ago, I ran the editorial division of a product called Supermarket Insights and Retail Insights, which was owned by a company then called named McLean Hunter, which also owned Progressive Grocer. At some point, the company was sold to a guy who I don't think really knew what he was doing. He eventually closed the video division, threw out all the tapes, and subsequently, I went on to do a lot of other video work in a lot of other capacities. And I've been lucky. One of the great things about the video work that I've done over the years is I have been to 49 states shooting various different projects and 6 continents. Only state I haven't been to shooting a piece is Alaska. Anybody wants to call me, come up, have me give a speech in Alaska. I'm there, ready to do it. And if anybody can figure out a way for me to get to Antarctica, I'm there too. Although, you think they have COVID in Antarctica? Anyway, so we have all this video that we've shot over the years, and it's in so many ways, it's just a terrific look at what the industry looked like and how I, at the time, was reporting about it. And the one I want to start out with today is one where, when you look at it, first of all, boy, did I get this wrong. So this is a piece that I put together in 2007, and it was about Tesco. And the way it looks, it appears that I did it for a CIES Food Safety Conference. And it's a long piece. It's like 12 minutes long. You don't have to watch the whole thing. Trust me. You just watch the first few minutes. Because some of it actually refers back to something that I had done 10 years before for a different project, in which I had an interview with CEO Terry Leahy, and had an interview that I had done before that with the CEO before him, Sir Ian McLaurin, who, by the way, gives me one of the best quotes that I ever got on video in my entire career. See, and that comes in the first couple of minutes. So anyway, this food safety piece is interesting. It really does get down in the weeds. Like I said, you don't have to watch the whole thing. But I think it's interesting. The thing I got wrong is in this, and it's very clear here, is I'm waxing rhapsodic in 2007 about Tesco's plan to enter the United States with Fresh and Easy stores, which, based on my experience reporting on Tesco, man, I thought these were going to be winners. They were going to just knock it out of the park. They didn't. That's the understatement of the year. They totally got it wrong. Now, I got it wrong because they got it wrong. If they'd gotten it right, I would have been right, but I'll take that one. I totally misjudged Tesco in this case. But anyway, like I said, it's a long piece. I think you might enjoy watching some of it over the coming weeks and months. We're going to have others, Singapore, Taiwan, New Zealand, really interesting stuff, and I hope you're going to enjoy it. So here is a piece that I shot at Tesco 2007 with a little bit of a flashback within the flashback to 1997. So I hope you enjoy. We're coming to you from Pitsea, a suburb about 45 minutes northeast of London, England. But we're not here to gaze at the British countryside. This is a brand new Tesco Extra store, and it's our first stop on a tour of some of the more interesting retailers working on meal solutions initiatives in Europe. Examining these retailers is a good way to shine a fresh light on meal solutions, to see this phenomenon from a whole new perspective. The time seems ripe for meal solutions in Britain, and Tesco is taking advantage of the trend.
Well, a lot of people write a lot about British food and the British palate and their interest in food compared to, say, the French. I think that it is true to say that the French live to eat and we do eat to live. And so the British market's characterized by an interest in convenience, easy shopping, easy food. And so it's been a good market in which to develop prepared foods. And we've got a terrific business in prepared foods, where people can come in, they can make a quick selection, they can take it home, not a lot of time in the kitchen, but they're buying the whole meal.
Cashing in on meal solutions at Tesco requires dual strategies that have evolved over time.
5 years ago, we spoke with Tesco's then chairman, Ian McLaurin, and this is what he had to say on the subject of in-store food service preparation.
I have heart attacks when I go around American stores and I see all these chefs fiddling around making a few pizzas and baking a few donuts and things like that. Now that to me is just sheer stupidity, because you really don't have to do it.
So imagine our surprise when we walked into Tesco Extra and found this.
It's not that Lord McLaurin was wrong. It's just that the market changed, customers' needs changed, and Tesco was facile enough to evolve with them.
Well, it's just evolutionary.
That was then. This is now. This Tesco store is in Kensington, a London neighborhood that has a fairly diverse demographic population. But it hardly reflects the kind of size and marketing strength that Tesco has achieved since we talked to Terry Leahy 10 years ago. Over the past decade, Tesco has grown to be an enormous player on the world retail stage. Not only does it operate supercenters, superstores, metro stores, and convenience stores in the UK, but it also operates in the Czech Republic, Hungary, Poland, Ireland, Slovakia, Turkey, China, Japan, Malaysia, South Korea, and Thailand. Later this year, that list will grow to include one more country, a little place on the map called the United States. But with all that growth, Tesco's focus on food and food safety has remained a high priority. In fact, the high priority.
You know, food safety is the number one thing on our agenda. It is the most important thing. It sits alongside quality, legality and ethics. Food safety is right there. It is embedded in our business, and the people that we employ have that as their number one on their agenda. I mean, they have gone to university, they've trained in food science and food technology or those related disciplines, and the way we train them and upskill them once they're here. And then, of course, the codes of practice and the way we want our suppliers to work with us drives that agenda of food safety. Whether it's the auditing we do or the requirements that we have, it's driven by food safety.
This is especially important for Tesco because the company name is on so many of the packaged products that it sells.
While fresh foods provide the most visible food safety test for many of the world's supermarkets, it is packaged and prepared foods that are the biggest challenge for Tesco, which does an enormous amount of business with these own-label products. Each of these items has to live up to Tesco's high safety standards, which means that vendor personnel has to be trained, audited, and then made to understand not just the food safety rules, but Tesco's food safety culture.
This means that Tesco has an incredible network of suppliers, and it has to make sure that everyone in the network has the same priorities and standards.
99.9% of the products that are on the counter are actually produced by an outside supplier. For the purposes of this, you can imagine that there's a supplier making those products for us. And sandwiches is an example of a product which is hugely labour intensive, of course. There's very little in sandwich manufacture that's done automatically. But yeah, we've got suppliers all over the world. In fact, we have suppliers in every continent except Antarctica. We don't fish there. So we have suppliers in every continent and hundreds of countries around the world. And then, of course, that's just the products and the suppliers. When you start to look at the raw materials that go into all these products, those come from literally hundreds and hundreds of countries. In fact, I think there's one product, a kind of duck and hoisin sauce, and I think when you break down all of the ingredients and then sub-ingredients, you're talking of over 80 different raw materials that go into actually making that product that you then take home, heat up and eat.
To give you a sense of how complicated this can get, Liz Kynock says that Tesco sources products and raw materials from more than 50 countries around the globe.
the bottom line is, you know, Tesco isn't in food manufacturing. Tesco has selected suppliers who can meet our standards, who can make the right quality, who've got the right price, can make the right volume for us, and operate to standards which are acceptable, standards of hygiene and standards of process control. And we search for those suppliers all over the world, because the food that comes to the UK shelves does come from all over the world. We have local vendors, of course, and suppliers who are supplying products just to the UK, and then if you go to our other businesses in Poland, for example, we've got Polish suppliers selling into Poland, but then we've got Polish suppliers who are exporting to other parts of the world as well.
Which means that for Tesco, one of the major challenges is to make sure that appropriate and sufficient training takes place in vendor facilities and to vendor personnel.
We have to do it as a partnership with suppliers. It's not a them and us situation. We've got to do it in absolute partnership. Communication is key. We have things which help with communication. For example, we have our technical library, which is a place where we share information with our suppliers. They can look at information, we can talk to them, all our reference material, the things that they need to understand how they run their factories is all there. And it's also a collaborative workspace as well. So that's been obviously a recent invention, being an IT web-enabled tool. But communication is absolutely key. And if we make a change to a code of practice, something to do with the running of the factory or a raw material, then we don't actually write that in isolation. What we do is work closely with our suppliers, and they have a huge amount of input into those documents, which effectively will then be their rules for operating for Tesco.
It means intimate involvement every step of the way.
From the beginning, when we're actually developing a product, this would be at maybe the chef's stage. Apart from getting the product to taste right, apart from getting the product to perform well during shelf life, all the way along, the food technology team from Tesco and the supplier are involved. Now that will go right back to specifying raw materials in some cases. So the quality and type of raw materials, the conditions under which they store the raw materials, what is the shelf life of the raw materials, and then all the way during the process, obviously we apply HACCP all the way through to ensure that every safety point is absolutely adhered to. And then of course that the product then is stable for the length of shelf life. So there will be numbers of checks and tests done in laboratories to ensure, over and above eating quality, that the product is absolutely correct and safe and of the right quality.
But auditing a supplier during product development is only the beginning.
Well, I suppose the technical teams will be visiting suppliers on a regular basis, especially the ones that are producing product very frequently, like the sandwiches, who will be making 7 days a week, pretty much every day of the year. So there's a lot of involvement because we're on site a lot. And that's the sort of day-to-day. And then we have an audit programme with our product integrity unit, who actually do unannounced visits on our suppliers. And that's a full due diligence audit. So we have a suite of audits that we would use. So there's that, and just the level of communication we have with our suppliers is actually quite frequent.
And in some cases, Tesco finds that it makes sense to actually help to train its suppliers.
For example, we're embarking on a programme in the UK of local, sourcing local, much more than we've done before. We've always sourced local product, but we're doing a lot more of that. And as we've gone round to these smaller suppliers, no, their standards don't match up to the standards that we'd expect in a sort of a modern retail, because they've never had a retailer visit them before. So one of the efforts that we've been putting in there, apart from recruiting specific technical managers with broad experience to help those suppliers, is we've actually run training courses for them. So just in Scotland last month, we ran a 3-day course for these small suppliers, and it was absolutely fantastic. 3 days worth, and it was just worth every penny that was spent and the effort that went in. And we'll actually replicate that around the country. So that's Tesco saying, let us help you. Now, we could only have a relatively small number of people from each supplier there, but we had representatives from production, technical and engineering, because we feel it's very important that they hear that directly from us, rather than just, here's a set of documents, if you read this, and then go and apply it.
Tesco's goal is to replicate this local program on a global basis.
Well, we started to plan that. So we've got quite a lot to do in the UK because of this very large programme that we have here. And we have done some training already in other parts of the world, and we will continue to do more of that. So part of it will be we upskill our own people. So if we take on a new team of people, which we are doing at the moment in Shanghai, for example, that team of people will be trained. Some of them will come here for training. They'll visit suppliers here. We will send people out there. And then we will get groups of suppliers together and help them. It just depends. Some suppliers have a large technical function of their own and understand very thoroughly what the requirements are, and others just need more help, especially the smaller suppliers who haven't come across any of these things before.
Liz Kynock notes that food safety and the complex, comprehensive training required at all levels of the food chain to achieve it is a lot more complicated today than it was 10 years ago. There are so many more customers, so many more cultures, so many more markets, and so many more suppliers. But it is in reaching out to those suppliers, especially through training, that Tesco believes it can stay ahead of the curve and keep its customers safe. And that is the real bottom line.